Consider supporting TnVGaming on patreon.com for only $1 a month, link below in the description. The PlayStation Vita has had an interesting life on the market. There is no denying that the system has been a commercial failure in every global territory outside of the Japan-Asia regions. However, it's because of those two aforementioned regions that the system continues to get new releases to this day, and many of them even get localized in Europe and the United States. But when we look back, well over 5 years back, the hype for the PS Vita was real, and the system promised to bring AAA console-quality games to your pocket, and early releases seemed to deliver on that promise. However, by 2013, interest in the United States and Europe began to fade, and by 2015, Sony Interactive Entertainment America and Europe began clearancing out PS Vita hardware, software, and accessories. For many, the PS Vita is a faint, forgotten memory of Sony's second attempt to take on the Nintendo handheld juggernaut, but for those of us who still own and play the system in lieu of the Nintendo Switch's release, all we see is what could've, what would've, and what should have been. But what does the future have in store for the platform? Before I answer this question, I'd like to take you back to a time prior to launch when the system was still known as NGP, so we can look into the future shortly after. In early 2011, Sony Computer Entertainment America made an announcement that took the world by storm. A new PlayStation Portable was on the way and they were codenaming it NGP, or Next Generation Portable. For its time, the NGP was packed with some of the latest and greatest technologies that the electronics giant could get its hands on. A 5-inch QHD 540p OLED multi-touch screen, a rear touch pad on the back, an ARM Cortex A9 quad-core CPU, a PowerVR SGX 543 MP4 Plus GPU, dual analog sticks, front and rear cameras, 6-axis motion sensing technology, and so much more. Naturally, many people were excited, and the machine was certainly state-of-the-art, and it was gorgeous aesthetically. It was a new PlayStation system, but the one thing people wanted to know about was price. The 3DS launched for $249 in the US with lukewarm reception, so naturally many people were expecting the NGP to be a smash hit. At launch, Sony took a straight gut shot to the 3DS by launching the base PS Vita at the same price of $249 US, and the system was far more capable. However, despite its promise, there would be one fatal flaw: the memory cards. At launch, the PS Vita would have no internal memory, which would have been more accepting if it wasn't for the astronomical prices of the proprietary memory cards that were required if you planned on doing anything with this system. At launch, the 4GB memory card was $29.99, 8GB was $44.99, 16GB was $69.99, and 32GB cost a whopping $119.19, nearly half the cost of the system itself. The decision to price out the consumers with memory cards was the Achilles heel and would scare off a lot of potential buyers. Couple the high memory card prices with abysmal marketing campaigns in Europe and America, and on top of fledgling first-party support everywhere outside of Sony Computer Entertainment Japan, and it becomes clear why the system failed. From 2011 to 2013, the PlayStation Vita had some fantastic titles showing off the power of the system, and were some fantastic portable experiences with Uncharted Golden Abyss, Killzone Mercenary, Tearaway, and Freedom Wars, just being a few highlights that were released during that time frame. But without a fierce marketing effort, no one knew about them, and the system went on widely ignored. The system started to show signs that it just wasn't moving units in America and Europe, and Western third parties began abandoning the system and focusing on the 3DS, PS3, or even the 360. Sony would attempt to remedy this in 2013 by rebranding the PS Vita as a companion device for the PS4, showing off the abilities of the Remote Play application, and by bringing more indie titles and Japanese third-party games to the system, while still generating new but few in-house developed games. By 2014, Sony tried once again to recapture the lost audiences of the gaming market with two announcements: the release of the PlayStation Vita TV in Japan, while rebranding the microconsole as the PlayStation TV in the other two territories. The sole purpose of this device was to bring the library of over 1,000 PS Vita games to the big screen. However, there was one issue: the entire device felt rushed and last minute. The second being the announcement of PlayStation Now, being compatible with both PS Vita and PSDV/PS Vita TV. This would allow users to stream PS3 games and eventually PS1, PS2, and PS4 games to their PlayStation TVs, PlayStation Vita TVs, and PlayStation Vita systems, respectively. However, there were two big problems. The PS TV/PS Vita TV used the same exact touchscreen-based live area operating system that the handheld did, which didn't translate well when using a DualShock 3 or DualShock 4 to operate it on a big screen. And they purposely whitelisted certain titles as incompatible due to the front and rear touch controls not being properly executed and reprogrammed to take advantage of the DualShock 4's touchpad. The result is that some of PlayStation Vita's greatest blockbuster titles were incompatible with the PS TV/PS Vita TV system. The worst part is that Sony never really did anything to address these issues, and most of the compatibility came from hackers in the homebrew community. The result was that in less than 2 years later, Sony Computer Entertainment axed both the PS TV/PS Vita TV systems in all territories, including Japan. The second was that PlayStation Now was expensive and required great speedy Wi-Fi connections to use it properly. Despite Sony's efforts, both attempts to reinvigorate interest in the platform failed, not because they were poor ideas, but because Sony of America and Europe's efforts seemed half-assed at best. By 2015, Sony had officially announced that first-party games had completely halted, and ever since then, it has mainly been third-party Japanese developers and publishers and Western indie developers bringing new games to the system. Sony Interactive Entertainment America and Europe brushed the system under the rug and forgot about it while focusing on PlayStation 4 and PSVR, but Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Asia still markets and supports the system alongside the PS4, PS4 Pro, and PlayStation VR headset. You could even see it on their JP Asia website. Which leads me to their present day and future. What exactly can we expect from PS Vita in 2018 and beyond? Well, many Japanese third-party developers and publishers have announced upcoming titles for the system, and Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Asia has even announced they are working on an in-house game aimed towards children to recapture the audience of young players in Japan. They even still manufacture limited edition variants and have multiple colors available in the JP Asia regions, but what about the others? What about the American and EU PAL regions? This is where things tend to get a little fuzzy. While some companies like Limited Run Games operate within the US, many of the games they publish are lackluster at best, and very niche by nature. Other companies from Japan have US and EU localization divisions like ATLUS and Falcom do tend to bring a lot of their games to the States and even Europe. Though it seems physical releases are getting fewer and fewer by the month, they are still coming, and the lineup for 2018 looks promising if you're already a fan of the type of games that are available on the PlayStation Vita. The hardware, on the other hand, is certainly cheap enough to come across in the States and in Europe, from my understanding. SIE America and Europe have discontinued all manufacturing of PS Vita systems in the States, but pre-owned hardware can easily be found for under $100 US, bundled with a decent-sized memory card. It seems that Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan Asia is still committed to the 10-year life cycle of their platforms, and the two other territories are just getting the scraps of whatever select companies decide to bring or allow developers to bring to the West. It's sad to see a device with so much untapped potential go widely ignored by the gaming community by and large. However, the future of the PS Vita, at least in the West, will be backed by its loyal, albeit niche following it has as developers continue to bring physical releases stateside, utilizing select online and in-shop retailers like GameStop and Amazon.com to satisfy the demand in the territories for physical retail releases. So not all is lost. While the PS Vita is certainly headed towards the end of its life cycle on the marketplace, I would like to think that with the newly appointed global CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Sony will release another portable, or at least consider it, as I do not want any single party alone dominating any of the handheld or console business spaces. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Nintendo. A lack of competition only ends up hurting the consumers in the long term, and Sony's portable business has been both evolutionary and revolutionary, with each iteration of their handhelds getting better and better than the previous. I think that Sony Interactive Entertainment is the only company on the market that has the creative resources to bring on another handheld to challenge the Nintendo juggernaut for dominance in the handheld space. Regardless, I know that my PS Vita will be getting a lot of use as I have well over 100 titles in my backlog that need to be played, trophies that need to be earned, and for one reason or another, it has become my favorite handheld of all time. Despite its quirks and flaws, I still love it, and I know that my system will be getting plenty of use for years to come.